Sounded like my mom. She'd say that. Hey, I'm Trio Kelly. I'm the principal at Pleasant Grove Elementary School. I've been here at Center Grove for 21 years in some capacity. I'm fortunate enough to introduce you to one of Pleasant Grove's finest. And, I was thinking the last couple of days what I was going to say, and it was a bumper sticker that really solidified everything for me. So when you see the bumper sticker that says, "Humankind, be both," it made me think of Ruby Bean. So I've nominated Ruby Bean to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I could give you a little bit more information. Ruby is beyond just kind. I could give her the best compliment that I can possibly give, and that is, I hope she becomes a teacher in my building. Since she came to my building as a first grader, you could tell from the get-go that she had just genuine joy in life, and she spread that to other people. And she still does that even as a fifth grader, where sometimes I'm wondering, okay, where are we going with these fifth graders? She is absolutely amazing. Every teacher, every year, has told me, thank you for putting Ruby in my class. She's here with her mom, Amanda, her father, Stephan, her brothers, Oliver and Max, and her mom, her grandmother. Ruby, if you'd like to come up.
Hi, my name is Ruby Bean. Will you please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It looked good on Amazon. So what? We can at the end. Okay, before we go on to adopt the agenda, there's something I'd like to take this opportunity to clarify some information that was questioned at the last board meeting. A claim was made during public comments that some of our high school classrooms were not displaying the United States flag as required by the state law. At the conclusion of the board meeting last month, Dr. Long took the time out of his evening to walk every hall and check every classroom in high school. Every classroom he checked, 97 in total, did have United States flag. As we have shared, I'm a veteran, Dr. Rich Arkanoff is a veteran, and Dr. Bill Long is a veteran, and we take this flag right here pretty serious. So we feel it's important to clarify that information with you guys this evening. Next on the agenda is adopt the agenda.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comments regarding agenda items. We have one person, Bill Collins, for improvement plans and policy revisions. Bill, I'd like for you just state your name if you're affiliated with the group, keep your comments to 3 minutes, stay on topic, and direct your comments just to me only, and don't mention anybody else's name.
My name is Bill Collins. No, I'm not affiliated with any groups. Do I need to give my address and all that other stuff?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. 3865 New Battle Lane, Bargersville, Indiana, 46106. So first, the policy revisions. At the last meeting, there were 75 pages worth of policy revisions that you guys called it a first reading. You guys didn't read a single policy. So this time you guys are going to call it a second reading. You guys probably aren't going to read any of these. You'll just vote on them. It's kind of disingenuous. And then you guys are going to have another first reading. Hopefully you'll read some of those. I doubt it, though. 75 pages, that's kind of obscene not to read any of them. And then the school improvement plan, I asked for a copy of it because it wasn't readily available, and I received an email basically telling me no. But one of the things that was interesting and kind of ironic, down at the bottom of the email that told me no, there was a little quote. It says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And that was a quote from Margaret Mead. I think that that's awfully ironic that when small groups of thoughtful, committed citizens ask for information from the school corporation, we're told no. I don't see personally any reason to hide information or delay the release of information. This is a public school funded by taxpayers of this public. So members of this public asking for information, you guys really have no right to hide or delay any of that information being released. If you guys are working in the best interests of our students and of this community, why hide or delay anything? There's really no purpose to it. And on the topic of the improvement plan, I did, with the help of Dr. Arkanoff and, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the person he referred the email to, they were able to get me to last year's improvement plan and the benchmarks for that. According to the Indianapolis Star, we failed to meet those benchmarks. What happens if we fail to meet?
30 seconds.
What happens if we fail to meet this improvement plan? Is there going to be some kind of remediation for the staff, for the administration? Is there some kind of consequences? Or just every year, we're going to keep making benchmarks that we fail to meet? For the last decade, this school has been failing. It's convenient to blame it on COVID, but for the last decade, we've been failing, and nothing's been done about it except more improvement plans.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Next on the agenda, consent items.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. This evening, I'm recommending the board approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Any questions?
Mr. President, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented. Sorry, I thought you were waiting on, you were going to ask me to make the motion. Sorry, that's why I was looking at you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda items as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is our action items for this evening, 6.1. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Okay, this evening, I'm recommending that the board accept bids for Middle School Central. So with that, I'll have Dr. Long provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. Just to recognize Jim Gawley from AECom Hunt is here tonight. Jim's been with us for quite a while working on our projects. On September 1st, 2022, we received bids for the Center Grove Middle School Central Addition and Renovation Project. We received bids for bid packet number 3, General Trades, bid packet number 6, Mechanical, Plumbing, and Fire Support, bid packet number 7, Electrical and Technology, bid packet number 8, General Lighting, and bid packet number 9, Classroom Tunable Lighting, and bid packet number 10, Food Services Equipment. Due to the lead time of some of our other trades, we previously awarded bid packet 1, site work, bid packet 2, foundations, bid packet 4, structural steel, and bid packet 5, roofing at the July 28th, 2022 meeting. So if you were wondering why we didn't go 1 through 10, that's the reason why we had approved those other ones. Altogether, we received a total of 18 bids for the 6 bid packets, and we were about $347,000 under our estimates. Tonight, we're recommending the board accept the bids for the following bid packages. Bid packet number 3 to Young Klaus Campbell in the amount of $5,979,850. Bid packet number 6 to Griner Brothers Incorporated in the amount of $2,176,000. Bid packet number 7 to Payne Electric in the amount of $1,141,936. Bid packet number 8 to Energy Harness Corporation in the amount of $36,400. Bid packet number 9 to Energy Harness Corporation in the amount of $197,300. And finally, bid packet 10 to C&T Design in the amount of $1,040,381. We, as I mentioned previously, we've started a few of those other projects. Our goal is to be finished by May of 2024.
In 2024, all right. You good with that, Mr. Gully?
Mr. Goley, you said you've been with us for several years. We know you all started at the age of 16. Kind of a backward way of calling us all old, wasn't it?
Speak for yourself.
Has there been a noticeable improvement in the supply chain issues, or are those still some of the challenges we face on some of these projects?
Some of them's improved, Scott, some of them still an issue. And to be quite frank, we're still hearing new ones every day. But, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, I mean, you guys have done
every day.
a great job considering the supply chain issues that we've had and the lead time on steel, and
Yeah, I was gonna ask about steel.
you guys have done a great job working around those things and getting projects completed on time. So I just commend you guys for sticking with it.
And
When we pre-ordered, remember we pre-ordered steel, didn't we?
Yes.
Was that for the middle school packages as well?
Yes.
The possible, what we need?
Those earlier ones that Bill mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay, good, so that's not gonna hold us up then.
We're on schedule to meet those deadlines.
what I liked from what I just heard was that we're done in May of 2024, and we're 347,000 under the estimate. So I think that's, in the current climate. Thank you for pushing us to pre-order steel.
Yeah, very much. Good decision. Is 2024 completion of both middle schools? Or just Central?
No.
That would be just Central?
North is earlier.
Oh,
Can't think of the exact date right
okay.
now.
No,
I'm sorry.
that's good if it's before 20.
December or January, and then Central was shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
I'm recalling from memory, so.
But, yeah, 2024 is kind of totally.
We're doing a lot more work at Central than we are at North.
No other questions?
Mr. President, I move that we accept the bids as presented, bid package 3.
No.
Okay. I move that we accept the bids as presented for a total recommended award of $10,571,867.
Second. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ian.
I second.
Amy seconded. Motion's been made and seconded to accept bids for Middle School Central. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
6.2, Dr. Organoff?
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve the school improvement plans, and Dr. Nora Hoover will provide you with some additional information.
Okay, thank you. Just some things, I know we approve these every year, but I want, as a reminder, per Indiana code, all public schools in the state must annually submit a school improvement plan. Also, per Indiana State Board of Education rule, plans must be submitted to and approved by the governing body. The applicable legal standard requires that each school submit their full revised 3-year plan on a yearly basis. All Center Grove schools must submit their plans for this year to the Department of Education by October 6th. The Indiana School Improvement Plan is part of a process for continual school improvement. To be effective, the plan should be viewed as a living document evolving as circumstances change during that 3-year period covered by each year's submission. Each Center Grove school is reviewed and considered its assessment data, its most current data, and revise their school improvement plan to reflect the current building needs. The student achievement goal for each building is the basis for their strategies and professional development throughout the year, and is delineated in their action plan. Also, as a reminder, our schools are in a renewal year, not the 3-year cycle where they kind of take a big overview look. This is more of a renewal within the 3-year process. So what they do is they look at their most current data and decide if they need to adjust benchmarks, from that performance data, strategies for instruction, student outcomes. They look at research for best practices and see if there's new or different things we should be doing, and also then what professional development is needed for our staff. I also want to share that our school and our federal accountability, that we, in state, we met or exceeded expectations in both performance, just how students did, and the growth of students. So it's not just how many kids meet a proficiency level, it's how much growth we can get, which is very important for us to know, especially for those students who are striving learners and have farther to go, so we can see how much closer we're getting them to where they need to be. So all of our schools met or exceeded those expectations by the state and the federal systems. So.
Any questions?
Any questions you guys had reviewing it?
I reviewed the plan and
I read it all today.
don't have any questions.
I need a motion.
I move that we approve the school improvement plans as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve school improvement plans as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, just real quick, so, after approval, these will be obviously available to the public, the things we saw tonight with summaries, but then full plans per code also go onto each school's website, so parents can look at the entire 3-year plan in addition to any changes for this year.
Thank you.
6.3.
Thank you. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve an amendment to, make sure I'm on the right, here we go, amendment to level C and level D salary and wage schedules reflecting a salary and wage increase. And Mr. Taylor will provide you with some additional information.
Thank you, Dr. Arkanoff. We are recommending a base salary and wage increase of 5.65% for our level D, or our level C and level D employees. This group includes our permanent and part-time support staff members. Might think of custodians, bus drivers, maintenance, classroom IAs in that group. This would be retroactive to the first employee workday on or after July 1st, 2022. I will bring a revised statement of benefits for your approval at the October 20th meeting, where you'll see these actual value changes, detailing salary changes. And this salary has been included in the 2023 budget that I plan to present later this evening.
Any questions?
Mr. Taylor, this is 565, and this group last year got 7%, is that right?
That's correct.
So we're following up the 565 with the 7%, so over the 2 years.
Yeah, we're really proud to do that, be able to do that for our support staff.
And this is our non-certified staff, so this.
That's correct. We're still actively in negotiations with our Teachers Association, and that also would exclude the administrative group from being approved tonight. And so we would bring those back at a later date once we've gotten through that process. But felt like it was appropriate to go ahead and move support staff level C and D at this time.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
I think it's important by doing this, we show our support staff that we support them, that they're not a lower ranking situation. They are just as across the board with everybody else.
We'll need a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the raise for level C and D employees as presented.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve raises for level C and D employees. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
6.4.
This evening is our first budget hearing, so tonight will require no board action. However, we do need to have our public hearing. So this evening is a hearing for the 2023 budget, and I will turn it over to you, Mr. Hubbard, for running that meeting, and start right there.
Good.
Yeah.
This evening's board meeting has been appropriately advertised as a hearing on the 2023 budget, the bus replacement plan, and the capital projects fund plan. I now open the public hearing.
See if I enlarge the font.
Yeah, thanks. I've started squinting. I would like to call Mr. Taylor to provide an update on the budget.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. I'll be brief. I've got 8 key points to hit here. And Ms. Howard will do a great job of moving forward with the slides for me, so you can go ahead to the next one. Thank you. Some key important dates with the budget this year. I want to start, this is my first presentation. I have to give great thanks to Dr. Gabriel, who stepped down from this position at the end of June. And Kathy Statzer, who's in the back of the room, played an integral process in getting this budget ready to be brought to you this evening. We look forward to executing this budget in January. So important dates are this evening. This information has been advertised well in advance of this meeting on the Gateway platform provided by the state. We'll do a hearing tonight. It's on the budget, the bus replacement, and the capital projects plan. Those are all 3 required by state code. And then the board would actually adopt this budget at their October 22nd or 20th meeting, if approved. On the next slide, I'll talk about the 8 areas I'm going to focus on this evening, beginning with enrollment changes and working my way through a summary. You'll see all these titles repeated later on as we move through. The first one we want to highlight is our enrollment changes. This was a particularly high year of growth for Center Grove schools. Very excited for it. We had projected about 200 new students. As of this morning, we ended up with 363 additional students in our schools, putting us up at that 94-34 mark. That will change between now and next Wednesday as we certify that number with the state. But we are very pleased to see that, and part of that allows for things like the large raise that we were able to, or the higher raise amount we were able to offer support staff. Our official enrollment date was last Friday, but again, it takes a few weeks to certify that information. We built this budget on an advertised enrollment of 9430. We're going to be very close to that final number, it looks like, when we do certify. And we receive about $6,400 per student each year. Key to highlight that, sounds like a great number. We're very happy with that number. We're very happy to have that number for our students. But it does rank in the bottom 25 of all public school corporations in the state of Indiana. And so there are 300 public school corporations in the state of Indiana, and we're 25th from the bottom. So that's something to keep in mind, that a lot of this number and the budget and the growth that we're experiencing is because of that student increase, not because of an increase in the funding formula. As we mentioned, we do have to discuss a capital asset plan. Dr. Long, myself, and technology, we put together this plan. We look at any items or projects or assets over an amount of $10,000. That is available on our website, and I'll share that link at the end of the presentation for anyone who wants to review those projects. And then since 2010, we've supplemented revenue in the operations fund with general obligation bonds. So we do purchase a large amount of equipment out of those bonds because the operations fund just would not support those with this funding. And this year's total for those bonds are $5.8 million. And one of the action items the board would look at in October is again approving of those bonds. Next slide for me. Here's just kind of a brief summary of the capital asset plan. Much more details available on our website, but you can kind of see how those bonds are spent and how the money from the operations fund is spent as we move through there. The first slide up here is for the maintenance projects. You'll see the inclusion of security at the bottom of there and building improvements. And on the next slide, it's the technology projects and then a grand total for how those bonds were spent. Again, these are all equipment purchases, facility purchases, upgrades, work. There are no employees that come out of the GO bonds, just equipment and services. We also need to present this evening a bus replacement plan. That's on my next slide. Again, in greater detail online if you want to know exactly which bus is slated to be replaced. It's riveting information. But you can see the cost of buses have gone up
Can we just buy a 100th bus so we can get off 99?
No, we went up, so it was 98 in prior years.
It looks like a plug number.
I understand. But unfortunately, the third column's the scary one, because that number was
Yeah.
well below 1 million in prior years. And this will fund at best 8 buses next year when we make this purchase.
What's our length now of keeping buses?
10 to 12 years.
Still
This
10 to
plan's built on a 10-year cycle as required by state code, but we can get 12 years out, but that does cost us more in maintenance when we do it.
Maintenance
So
starts
it's
getting costly.
it's a balance. And some years, we just have to trade one in earlier, because it's just a lemon of some sort, you know? And they've just spent so much in maintenance that we had to, so. And in that 8 buses, I believe, the inclusion of a mid-bus, we hope to be able to fund in that amount. And we do carry that out for a 5-year cycle. I think that's all on that slide. Thank you, Tracy. So let's talk about some major budget changes that we've had this year. And this is really kind of focused in both accounts, so both funds, talking education fund and operation. There are no administrative changes. We had one transition, but there's no additional positions added this year. Due to that growth and those 343 new students, we did add 13 new classroom teachers. We also have increased some classroom aides. Some of those would be like kindergarten aides or just simply class size, maybe special education. And also, we can't just add teachers. We also have now more kids in the buildings and more needs for our physical plant. We were able to add 2 full-time and 4 part-time custodians, along with 2 new bus drivers into this budget to accommodate that student growth. Health insurance, this was a much better year this year for us than last year. We are recommending in this budget a 5.1% increase from the corporation and a 2.1% increase from the employees. We'll share more of that as we talk about other employee changes in the next month's meeting. That averaged out to about a 4% increase in revenue into that fund. Utilities, it's always a guessing game. We've got a little more information this year. We know gas is much higher than it was. Not just gasoline, but natural gas has gone up on us. And so we did increase the utilities by 5.8%. You can see what our expenses are in those accounts. And that's the increase of 175. We spend far more than that. That's just what 5.8% looks like. Gasoline also, we did a 25% increase. For us, that puts it up over $600,000 in what we spend on gas, and you can see that change. Again, this is all for '23, so we're trying to predict what the market will look like next year. And so we do use current trends to predict that. And then finally, we did need to transfer additional money for tax cap losses. And so this is where we've gone out to the public property, the assessed value, and we apply a tax to it, and we receive revenue for these funds, but it falls short of the revenue we need to operate or to pay our debt. And so part of that is due to the tax cap laws and the circuit breaker laws. We do lose that money that we've asked for from our property values. All other public agencies lose a little bit of money too, but the school corporation is the largest part of that. And so for us, that increase represents almost a doubling of what we had put in there in prior years. So we've seen those tax cap losses go up nearly double. I know Dr. Gabriel did a presentation on that in June. So some more information there if you look at those slides. So let's look at what this actually looks like. We have 3 major areas in the budget that we're talking about this evening: education, operations, and debt service. And you can see what the budget was, or what the revenue is in those accounts, along with what we expect to spend out of those accounts. I'm pleased to highlight the first 2, education operations, are a balanced budget. We plan to spend every dollar in revenue that we've received. In the debt service, this is a little bit different one. We're going to collect more than we spend, and we need to do that because we made some extra payments on debt last year, and we want to restore our cash balance level back to that so that we can make those extra payments in the future if needed. It was like a 3rd payment in a year. Typically, we'd make 2. And so that's all that's really doing. It's not exceeding the 2021 level. It would just get us back to where we were. So cash would have went down for a period of time. This will restore it. And that's the only reason the bottom 2 numbers then don't equal up. But all in all, it's a balanced budget. It's a well-designed and we think effective budget for us. Let's talk about how that budget's funded on the next slide. So in area number 6, we're going to talk about our total tax rate. Always want to kind of list the education funds on there. There's no tax associated with that. That comes from the state. It's income tax, sales tax, all those miscellaneous taxes we get from the state. But what we can control then are the tax rates in the operations and debt service fund. And on the slide, I've presented what last year's rate was, what we anticipate, what we're advertising for 2023. And then the far right, this is a kind of a shell game that we have to play with the state, because we never know exactly what those final assessed value rates are gonna be until late December. And so we always advertise high. So the number you see in the far right is what we say we'd like to raise, just in case assessed value came in higher or lower. It lets us make adjustments. And those adjustments are made in the month of December. And when we adjust them, our adopted rate will be what you see in the second column. So what's key to point out is we are not raising the tax rate for our homeowners this school year. We are remaining flat. It will be as close as possible to $1.02 and 4 thousandths of a cent. That last zero might change to a 1 or 3.9, something like that, but we will hit it as close as we can. But again, we've got to do that in December, but we've got to come to you folks in September. And so we've got to protect ourselves for down the road. And this isn't a new strategy. It's something we've done every year. Let's move on then, and let's look at what that tax rate looks like. So we always look back to 2009. That's when the state reset kind of the taxing and formula structure. And at that time, we were at 1.04 cents of our tax rate, and we've really remained flat over the past decade and a half. And again, you'll see these last 3 years where we've remained consistent at that $1.02 mark. The next slide, we always like to compare, so how are we doing as a school corporation in the county? Both Franklin and Clark Pleasant exceed our tax rate, partially due to building projects that they've had, partially due to referendums that they've passed, that they have a higher tax rate. We did lose the race with Edinburgh a couple years ago. I think it was just last year, where they had some pension debt fall off, and so they've moved back below us. But you'll see, we provide a pretty good bang for your buck, I'd say, here at Center Grove, to be right in the middle of the county schools and think about the quality of education that we are able to provide with that tax rate. Moving on, let's take a look at what that tax rate looks like for a Center Grove homeowner. This is not necessarily the average cost of a house in Center Grove, but $300,000 is a nice rounded off number for us to work with. And this slide did change a little bit from what the board has seen in the past. And we did that because it's something I really want to talk about. Assessed values have gone up. The values of our homes, and I live here in Center Grove, have gone up since last year. We all should expect a higher tax bill next spring. And that's due to the value of our houses going up. Not every single parcel throughout the township probably went up, but the vast majority did. And this is statewide if you've been following the housing market. So I inserted a third column for folks to take a look at. In the past, we've only shown the first two because we're not changing our tax rate. And that's key to know that what the school's action tonight that I'm presenting and that we're asking the board to approve in October is to not raise that tax rate. But if that house value went up, and that's what I'm showing in that third column, is that the house value's gone up about 10%. So a $300,000 house in 2022 is now worth $330,000 in 2023. You can see how that translates out. Even though our tax rate stays the same, the tax bill will change, and it's due to that value increase. Wanted to be real clear and transparent on that for our taxpayers so they understand that's coming. They're preparing for it, and they know. It is not caused by the school. Again, it's caused by those market changes and fluctuations that we've heard about. Got just two more quick slides to go through. Wanted to show, this is something we always predict at this time of year. The board will see these exact numbers later on when we talk about final appropriations to end 2022. But this shows where we expect our cash balance and operating balance at the end of this year. So how we will start the 23 budget. And you'll see we have a slight decrease there where we spent some more cash on things like unanticipated tax cap losses is the biggest expense there. And so this is a budget-to-budget comparison of where we thought the tax rate or the operating balance will end up. It will be different than this. This is the budget-to-budget comparison. We'll give you actual when we bring it back. Still well within that goal that the board's defined. Probably will be maybe a smidge higher, probably be back to flat if I had to predict right now, but did want to show that this evening.
So one thing to note there, Mr. Taylor, is that we did decrease the goal
Yes.
back in 2010
Yes.
down to 4%, and then under advice of
Yes.
our bonding and
Yes.
due to concerns on our ability to get AA or AAA
rating? You're correct.
To get AAA rating, they recommended you reset the goal back to 8%.
Yep.
And that's why you see an increase from 18 to 19 and continuing up to hopefully closer to 8% as we move forward so we can maintain our
That is
AAA
correct.
bond rating.
Yes, and we also at that time started looking at both funds. Prior to that, we were really only looking at one fund, our general fund, and that's when there was a major change. So those two things, Mr. Alexander, you're exactly right, and I do think the board will come in right around that 8% when the end of the year hits, so. A quick summary, education fund and operation funds are balanced budgets. You can see our increase in enrollment, always good to keep that in mind. We are not raising that tax rate, and so therefore there is no increase based off that tax rate. Now, on the final slide I want to provide, there's a very detailed budget website that the school has operated for multiple years. We share as much the information of where and how we're spending the taxpayers' dollars. Ms. Conrad and her department helps me with this, making the website look great and be real pleasing to the eye. It's very, very user-friendly. And then if there's some other document that's required at the state level, that would be on the Gateway website, and that's transparency for all government agencies. So the schools are just a part of that, but all government agencies' data that's required by code is listed there. So I encourage people to check that out, and we do welcome questions. I think that's ended my part. Mr. Hubbard, thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. So this is the appropriate time for members of the public to comment on the 2023 budget or the information presented here this evening in regards to the budget. Are there any members of the public present that would like to comment? Say,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
yeah, same thing as last time, just state your name and keep it to 3 minutes and just address me and don't mention nobody's name.
Bill Collins, 3865 New Battle Lane, Bargersville. The projections are very dependent upon growth into the Center Grove community. Has this taken into consideration the number of people that have left the public school system and have opted for homeschooling over public schools and have utilized vouchers for school choice opposed to traditional public schooling? And do you have the numbers for the number of students that have left the Center Grove School District and have gone to those options?
Would you like to?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Collins. We don't project out much beyond 2023 in this budget. We do project that in many other ways, looking at what our future debt or enrollment might be. That's something Dr. Long and I work on a lot to look at how our growth has been. We've been steady over the years. We've had 1 year, as you saw on that chart, where enrollment kind of flatlined. But we've been growing, as we estimate, about 200 students per year, and that's kind of what we've continued to estimate as we move forward. We don't have a ton of data on transfers. I wish we had more. I cannot tell you exactly every student who leaves Center Grove schools and where they go. That is something that the Department of Education and the state does not provide. We do get a list towards the end of each year of how many transfers have gone out to other public schools, and sometimes we have some privates on there. Doesn't have homeschool information. Can't provide that. We can't do certain schools that aren't fully accredited or part of the state. And so I can't give you that full answer. But we do track it. We do watch for transfers. We know some of our enrollment growth is from transfers in from other communities. A pretty good portion of it is. Anything I left out there, guys?
Other than the budget was based on an enrollment number of 9430.
And that's a locked-in number. We physically have those kids here today.
And then 9430 includes growth of 363 kids for this year.
Yep.
And that's subject to change. And when you talk about subject to change, that's just a certification because two schools might be claiming the same kid.
That's correct.
So there's just a true up in the accounting to figure out where the kid truly was. So, I mean, that happens every year.
correct.
It's normal. And what's the adjustment that usually occurs?
We have a that's money we would be funded on for the first 6 months of this budget. And then we get another number in February. It's February 1st this year, I think. And we lose our midterm grads at that point, our mid-year grads. But that's the second number that we get.
But good for them. We want them to
Yep,
graduate.
we do. We just like to keep their funding. And the state, to their credit, the General Assembly is working on that and has made some efforts in that area to help us out so that we can reward schools that allow that to happen.
But I'm looking
don't
from
hurt them.
2016 being a school of 8,000 kids to 2022, 2023 being 9,400 kids.
Yep.
That's 1,400 new kids in
Yeah.
not too long of a time.
I
I remember sitting through an Education Foundation meeting actually, and Dr. Arkanoff came in, and I don't remember what year it was, it may have been 16 or 17. And you were talking about the growth in Center Grove and said the growth that we experienced this year was the growth that we projected for 2019, 2020. So it's crazy to think that we've now passed that, and we're still continuing to grow and hit those numbers and talk about the growth of Center Grove and where we're
Yeah.
going. So
Absolutely.
impressive.
So we must be doing something right.
Procedurally, he needs
Yeah.
to,
So I now close the public hearing. Are there any board members who would like to comment with any questions or concerns?
I was being good and waiting.
I didn't want to interrupt anybody.
Jack has a lot
Mr.
to say.
Russell.
I just wanted to compliment you on the slide about the house, because that is the simplest way for community members to understand. But I like that you added why it's going up, not by our cause, but the assessed value situation. So I really appreciate that slide. Hopefully, people understand it and see it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, just be aware, there's no board action here this evening on this. We're not going to take any, but we will approve this budget, or at least be presented to us for approval at the October meeting. I believe it's the 20th, October 20th.
That will be another hearing.
Yes.
Not bad for your first presentation.
Yeah.
A little worried.
Kudos.
I'll do better next time.
At least you didn't start out with 100 slides like Paul had once in a while.
It was just like Paul was here.
You might be watching.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel.
Hi, Paul.
Is he evaluating you?
Yeah.
Most likely.
6.5?
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. This evening, there will be no action tonight, but I'm recommending,
Actually, you're on second.
I'm sorry, this is the second, I went to the wrong one. There will be action tonight. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve the proposed policy revisions. You have in front of you, oops, sorry. You have in front of you the policies. This is your second reading on these policies. I do appreciate the board's effort. I know you received these, and of course, the team, weeks and weeks ago, and have had them to review. As you know, this packet from Neola is more the last two packets are pretty much the lighter version of changes that we've seen over the years. So with that being said, tonight, this being the second reading, we would look for any questions, any additional questions you have on these policies, and also we would need a motion to approve these policies tonight.
And one thing, when these changes come through, it's usually Neola catching up with state law.
That's correct. Basically, after each session, they go through it's a whole team of lawyers go through the session. They make the recommendations to us, the red and green lines that you have. Our team looks at them and selects items that pertain to a school district our size. And then we share those also with the teachers associations. For example, there's information in there about like the teacher evaluation. There's things about maybe staff discipline or something like that, and then we share that with the Teachers Association. They go through them, and then they ask questions and provide input as well. So those are, and then sometimes policies too, I should say, we have different groups, like I have the president's group for the PTOs and the football programs and all of those. Sometimes those policies are even presented to them if they are, they pertain to them. And so that gives that group of parents and staff an opportunity to weigh in as well. So all of that being said, then you also are weighing in on them and then deciding which ones to go with. Neola has that team of attorneys that developed this. Our attorney, Michelle Cooper, actually is part of that team, that national team that does this work. So,
Well, and I do think it's notable too that, we talk about 75 pages of changes, but in those 75 pages of changes, one was training for sudden cardiac arrest for certain coaches and the like.
yeah,
And that affected 6, 7 different policies.
correct.
So
Yes.
it's kind of misleading when you're talking about what the policy changes were. You've got that, you've got graduation plans, you've got the fact that CPS is now DCS.
Yes.
So just changes like that may look to be a lot, but a lot of them are technical.
A lot of them were technical, especially this time around. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because the other thing too is when you look at Neola's system, there's a policy, and we talk about this all the time, the repeat is sometimes confusing. It pertains to students, staff, and community, right?
Right.
And it might be a 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000. It's the exact same policy, they apply differently to each group. Well, they apply the same to each group, they just rewrite it for each group. And that's just a legal system that they've put in place, and you probably appreciate it more than I do.
It's those darn lawyers getting in the way, right? No, but I think it's important to note
Yeah.
that even though it looks like it's 75 pages, you're talking about a handful of changes.
Correct.
And you're done, a lot of it's clarifying language, catching up with legislation that have been recommended to us, approved by our lawyer.
Right,
And one of them was the public comment.
yeah.
And while our old policy, we've been told was fine with the new law, we went ahead and updated it.
Yes.
Now that there's a new law out there, that was a perfect example of that,
That's correct.
with the assistance of Neola and our lawyer.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate the effort for you and your team.
Thank you.
And I know I asked this last month, but maybe be a little more clear on that. The policy 167.3, public participation at board meetings. Our particular policy has been reviewed by our legal counsel, correct?
That is correct, yes, yes, and has given the thumbs up.
Okay.
So tonight, we just need a motion in.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the policy revisions as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the proposed policy revisions for the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
6.6, Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. This evening, you have now the first round of readings, and this, again, is from Neola catching up with some additional policy revisions. We do have in there the policies and the changes. Again, most of these are, as you pointed out previously, Mr. Daniels, a lot of these are just more just clerical changes, catching up with some of the updates to the law. So with that, I'll just, rather than read through every one of them for you, and I know you guys have had these for a little while to look at, do you have any specific questions on any particular policy?
Just a regular red line.
I do not, it was pretty cut and dry.
I know the other thing too, I should just kind of for clarity, you do also receive a synopsis that we send to you that Neola puts together. I think they do a nice job of kind of helping you cut through that. It is more succinct. However, it's really, it's really probably something that can be confusing if not having the experience of being trained in it. So this is why the policy as a whole is probably better to have it.
Are there any specific ones, Dr. Arkanoff, you'd like to point out to us tonight? I mean, we've all been through them,
Yeah, no, I didn't, nothing was really of a red flag for me. I thought these were pretty just simple changes and updates. I think, there's always language that people get confused by in some of these policies that would make it, like a compliance officer, that's one that's in there, and people are always kind of like, well, what does that mean? We might, in fact, not to put you too much on the spot, but would one of you like to describe, like, what does the compliance officer do?
That'd be a person that's charged with investigating harassment and discrimination complaints.
Yeah.
And we're doing some just changes in titles to match. We always make sure we have a male and female representative as a compliance officer. And typically it's myself, Dr. Hoover's been one, Dr. Long probably was in the past. This time we're adding Dr. Nelson as well to that list. So our titles so we can serve in those situations when we need to.
And so the policy, while still exactly the same, the changes that who's involved in that. Yeah, yeah. So that's why you'll see a lot of those things. Is there any particular policy that stood out to you? Like I said, it was pretty.
Nothing jumped out.
I think one I will point out, I think might be the staff and student relations. That would probably be a good one, Jason, that we might want to talk a little bit
That's
about.
one, and that's one we shared. I know Mr. Lawson's in the room.
Yeah.
We've shared with our association presidents, and we will be discussing that with them and their larger discussion team next week. Just kind of really give some guidelines around appropriate and inappropriate student-staff relations. Some things that we've had in the past maybe were a little more vague. I think the laws changed a little bit, and Neola felt like it was time to really put out a list of behaviors that could be considered inappropriate. And so we'll spend some time talking to our teachers about that. They may give us a recommended change, which would be something we'd bring back to the board after discussions with them and
Yes.
and talk about making that change to make it best for everyone.
Tracy, would you bring that one up? That's page 15 on this document, I believe, and you can see it's policy 1213.01. I believe it's page 15.
Slide 15.
Yeah. Might be different when you change the, there you go. There you go. Oh, you had it. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Yep, that's it. Yeah, and so that particular list, as Mr. Taylor talked about, you can see those green X's. We selected those items. We don't have to select those. That's an option that Neola gives us. But as you can see, we went through those things. And so the one thing I'd like to point out, because we've had some conversation about this, so you'll notice the word inappropriate is typed in green. That was added by us. So it says A, hugging, kissing, or physical conduct with a student. So we thought it was important to put inappropriate hugging, because if you're an elementary teacher, particularly if you're a kindergarten teacher, whether you like it or not, kindergartners are hugging you, stuffing out of you sometimes. And, teachers didn't want to feel like that, they tell them no, And so, inappropriate hugging is, we kind of talked through that. And like I said, some of these will probably, grow and change a little bit more. But as of today, that was one quick one I wanted to point out. There's other things. And this is really important for teachers to understand and know, because sometimes these are things that students, might do to them. I'm looking at number, at B, letter B, have a student telling an inappropriate joke in class. I mean, the same thing. Teacher would need to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's a little bit of both ways on some of these things. So just wanted to share that one with you. Thank you for asking. That was probably the one that's generated the most conversation, I think.
The environment's changed.
Yeah.
For those of us that can't sleep, the 140-page
Yeah.
document here is a good read.
It's a lot of fun. I know it keeps me happy, so,
Like reading prospectus.
yes. So again, no board action this evening. These documents are for your review, and we will provide you with more information later. If there's no other questions or comments.
No questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to announcements. First is next month, October 20th, we'll do our regular board meeting right here in this room at 7 o'clock. And on the same day, we will gather for our executive session beginning at 2 p.m. So, any board member comments? Or anyone, from anyone up here?
I have something for the foundation, but if you want to go.
Are you going to give it, or?
Oh, you can if you
Yeah,
have it.
okay. Amy couldn't attend, so I went in her stay. The basic announcements is what's coming up for the foundation. They're going to have another purse bingo here on October 26th at Barnet Bay Horse, like usual. That's always a hugely attended event for them. The Center Grove School Board Candidate Forum will be November 1st, sponsored by the foundation. Center Grove, in the auditorium at the high school. The Center Grove Night with the Pacers, tentatively is Friday, December 9th. And that's always a fun night for families. And the elementary kids love selling those tickets because they have great prices. There's a new thing. They're going to try, Foundation's going to try a trivia night on February 3rd in 23. And then the Gala for the Grove again is April 22nd in 2023. So they've been very busy and have a lot coming on.
I think as I mentioned last time, my appointment to the Greenwood Redevelopment Commission is up. I've been in some conversations with Mayor Myers via text. He was meeting with his team today. They are thinking about rotating that to one of the other school corporations, because they rotate that around. It started with started with Greenwood, then went with Park Pleasant, then it went to us. So they may be rotating that position around some, so I will keep everybody posted. The Johnson County Redevelopment Commission is meeting on Monday, just normal housekeeping things, or anything big on the agenda. Do you have anything?
No announcements tonight, thank you.
I would like to recognize the Center Grove graduate from 2002, Zach Alexander, in the back of the room. Back there, Marine Corps, just got home from basic training.
Stand up there, Zach.
Semper Fi. Congratulations. I said 22.
Oh, I thought you said 02.
No, 2022.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, and I wish you the best success on all your ventures in the Marine Corps. Anything else? We'll conclude.